Yeah. Good to see everyone. I am, as you probably can guess, I'm particularly excited about this topic. Jen and I have talked about this extensively. To me, this is the cornerstone of what we do. In previous sessions, we've talked about really more from a business plan kind of standpoint, which is really what we're trying to do with Master Your Craft, like little bite-sized pieces that we do all the time. And this is a really tactical process that we have that absolutely fits into your business plan. It's sort of that line item of how do we present and what language do we use and are we doing the highest and best of this process. So I'm excited about this. I talked to Jen about this the other day. We launched this for Kansas City Homes, I'll call it 9 months ago, and I did some in-office presentations, and it started, and then we didn't stick with it as well as we should, and I own that. But this is something that I've been building and refining for better than 10 years. So I don't say that to impress you, but to impress upon you that there's a lot of thought that I think I've put into this, and I'm excited to share this. So a couple of housekeeping things as we get started. I'm looking at my time to make sure. So this is really about the craft of the process, and we'll get into the details. I would encourage us to not even really think about it as a listing presentation because it's so much bigger than that, and it starts sooner and it involves more. And I made this note. It's gonna be tough for many of us not to see the trees and ignore the forest. So I'll ask us to sort of step back and sort of take it all in and see the big picture. It's like one of those great TV shows that when you watch the first episode, it doesn't really make sense, but when the end, you're like, that's why all of these things happen to that character in the show. And that's kind of what this is about. I'm going to make us a little uncomfortable. Yeah, go ahead, Jen.
I just wanted to jump in before we get started, Jake, to tell everybody how excited I am about doing this topic. So we're talking about the Greenprint. And for those of you that don't know, this is something that we rolled out about 6 to 9 months ago, kind of a process steps for securing a listing. And 2 weeks ago, when we listened to
Yep.
the national town hall, it was really
Yeah, I put
cool that.
and actually, I just as you say that, I put in, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, so it was funny. We're sitting there listening to them. They did a little segment on this new process for listings, and now they are rolling out some videos and some trainings on how to do all these parts. And when it came on, I stood up and literally looked around the room trying to find Jake because we already had this planned for today,
Mhm.
and it is exactly what they have been talking about.
Yeah.
So I'm
And I
really
did.
excited to do this.
And Jen, I think I told you I went and downloaded that kickoff piece, and I edited it
Mhm.
down. So I've shared just Marjorie's section on what she talks about and how she presents, and I think that's, you know,
Perfect.
I'll say outside proof. Jen and I and Joanna and Jay and Michelle and Christian and everybody could say it, and you guys are like, meh. Somebody from outside the company says, and you're like, ooh, that's really good. So I'm okay with that idea.
Yep.
Let
Sorry,
me
I
go
might
back.
have
No,
taken
no,
your
no.
thunder because you
You
had
did
it all
not.
ready to go
You did
on a
not at all. I'm
slide.
going to move this back. Oh, there we go. So here's the thing. I'm going to make people a little uncomfortable, and here's the thing. I'm okay with that. That's kind of my job as a coach and a mentor, to do these things, is ask tough questions. So if your feathers get ruffled along the way, I apologize. But what I would ask you is, why are your feathers ruffled, and is it okay that they might be ruffled? I'm cool with critique. I think that's one of the most important things we do. But again, I would ask you, is this wrong because it's unfamiliar with you, or is it wrong because it doesn't work for your clients? And if it is wrong because it doesn't work with your clients, how could it work? Or are there parts of this that might work a little bit better? The end goal for this, every listing or lead you get should create 2 additional opportunities or leads from that process. That's been my experience for going back 10 years in this entire process, that when we do this right, the whole package, it really helps us generate those leads along the way. So I think of it as a referral recipe. It's bigger than a listing presentation. It's how we create and build these referrals and the process of that. All the little steps we're going to talk about go towards showing your large expertise, your system, your strategy, how you master this business, and not just the individual details. Jen, do you want to talk about that playbook for a second?
Sure. So Jake has had all these ideas he's been thinking about for like 10 years, he said. And here I come along and I'm like, okay, Jake, we're putting them in a one pager.
Which is
So
super appreciated, by the way, because I'm like, oh, that's a great idea.
so we have this, it's really 2 pages, 1 page front and back, about what the steps are in what we're calling the Greenprint. And so it has everything linked in it. So easy access for you to get all of the materials to do this. We already have it ready for you to go.
Yes. And I think that's, and Jen, I don't say this often enough, but I so appreciate what you bring to this, because without you, I don't know that any of this would happen. It sticks in my brain as large theory and ideas. So what I love about the playbook is, what we're going to talk about today is the concept and the strategy and the big picture, which is important. The green print, the one sheet piece is like, okay, well, how do I do it? It's the execution of that. Click here, do this, click here. So we all will go over this multiple times so you get comfortable with the idea. As I told Jen this the other day. It's like when you have a family recipe, you sort of have to make it a few times to know what the outcome should taste like. Before you get in, you're like, I'm going to add a little more of this because that's what I'm like, and I'm cool with that. But I do think it's important to sort of stick to the recipe a few times. And as a absolute non-recipe follower in every part of my life, I feel how painful that is. Just know from experience that there's some nuance in there. So here's what we want to do. We want to establish our marketing message, right? So already we're thinking just bigger than I'm going to show up at the door and do my listing presentation, song and dance, right? This is really the big picture of who you are and what you bring to the table. We're going to nurture leads into listings, and that's sort of the magic chunk here. We're going to not only learn to sort of cultivate and create our own questions or interest right before it even becomes a lead, and we're going to turn that lead or interest into a lead, and that lead eventually becomes an opportunity with a contract. And that's really the piece here. Is I want us to think sooner than just going on the listing appointment when we get the call. I want us to sort of create interest from our clients to actually have that happen, and harvest the relationships and referrals. How do we become the go-to person for all the things, not just, Jake's really good at solving this particular problem, but I go to somebody else for the rest of the stuff, right? We really want to establish this idea that your system and your strategy encompasses all of these little details to take care of things. So big picture stuff. Here's some questions for us, and this will hopefully help you get a sense of how well your system is currently working for you. How many referrals do you get? It's a common question, Jen. I'm sure you hear it all the time too. And I know when we talk, it's like, oh, I run my business entirely by referral. Great. But what is that number, right? That, running your business by referral is fantastic. But if it's only 2 referrals, that's good because we get 2 referrals. 2 people know us, like us, and trust us. But is that enough? On the other side of that coin, how many referrals are we not getting? Right? Do we know somebody that doesn't refer us business? Why? Brian Buffini talks about, working by referral is an active system. Working by word of mouth is kind of a passive system, right? We want us to be, intentional about cultivating those referrals. We'll talk a lot about the number of conversations, lead generation you have to do in order to get one opportunity. And a national coaching average among all the different coaches averages out to 35-ish, call it 30 to 35 activities, phone calls, notes, client parties, whatever that is, in order for one person to give you a lead for that. So I want us to think about what that number is for us. Do I have to have 60 conversations? Do I have to have 10? Because we can use that to leverage. Right. Then do we get every listing? We talked about master your craft. How many listings do I need to make the income that I want to make or need to make? Am I being intentional about it, and how do I have? And the last piece that I like to talk about, and I'm going to ask you guys to all do a little research with us and your team, list price to sales price ratio. It's one of my favorite pieces of data. When I list a property, what does it sell for? 101%, 98%. What is then the MLS number that represents? That becomes kind of the most important talking point when you're working with a client to be able to leverage that. And if it's 98%, that doesn't mean it's bad. But if we talk about it from the MLS standpoint, hey, other agents in this market, they're at 96. So I'm ultimately bringing more money to the table with my listings. So numbers to think about, things for you to think about and make note of as we go through this process. Everything we're going to talk about today from a strategy and a tactic piece directly speak to these data points. Jen, any thoughts?
No, I was going to interject, and then you hit the nail on the head about conversion rate. You can have a couple of referrals, but are you closing the deal?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
that's kind of, we're giving the system and the process to give you the best way
Yep.
or a leg up.
Yep. And I think that,
listing.
And I think that's kind of this idea that, Tony Robbins talks about in his business mastery class. And you've heard me say this before. Any business, anywhere, at any time has a little bit of a pyramid, right? And the very top part of the pyramid, 3%, that basically says those people are actively looking and interested in the thing you have to sell. So if we talk about it from a listing standpoint, 3% of the market at any time is like, I want to list my home right now, and I'm going to do research and reach out to people and find out who can list my home, or I'm going to make some phone calls, which is great. And I'm not going to call it low-hanging fruit, but those people are already enough down the decision-making path that, not that we don't want them as clients, but they've already started a little bit down the path, and those are the people that are submitting forms online to, lead forms and, referrals and submitting their information to have you call them. That's great. I want us to have a system for that, and this system works. But what I want us to do is focus on the 7% of the pyramid just below that. It's more than twice the number. Those are people that are interested in, if they understood the benefits of going through the process. Those are the people who are saying, I want to sell. I don't know if it's right. I don't know if it's the right time. I don't know the process. I don't really know if they have a lot of questions about it, but are sort of thinking through the idea. Those people are our prime target. What I want us to do is think about those people that would list their home if so motivated because they understand the benefits of working with you. It's a much bigger chunk of people. We get the chance to sort of cultivate them and train them on how this process goes. The rest of the pyramid, there's 30% who are like, I don't know if I want to or not, don't really care either way. 30% that just aren't even remotely thinking about selling their home. And 30% just absolutely are like, I am not selling my home. Right? Those people are also leads, potentially down the road. I would say on a long enough timeline, everyone is a buyer and seller. So there's an ancillary benefit to some of those people that are unsure. And we're going to have a secondary focus on those people as well, but it's that 7%. So here's some data from the National Association of Realtors. They, since tracking information, and I think this goes back roughly 30 years, you've seen this slide before. It's ingrained in my brain because of just the natural rhythms of all of us. So the left side piece first. 180 days, agents receive 85% of their leads during these specific time frames. And those aren't actually contracts. Let's not call them signed contracts, but leads that will turn into something soon. 75 days, the big one, mid-January to end of March, 45 days, mid-June, end of July, 60 days, mid-October, mid-December. Now, here's the thing, we're already in the heart of that, and that's great. What I do want us to think about is moving that time frame up for us a little bit so that we've already got our marketing in place when those people in the middle of January are like, ooh, now I'm ready, right? That's really what we want to think about. Now, from the customer side, on the other side, it's the same kind of thing. When they actually list their properties, 40% of all listings happen in January, mid-January to end of March, same time frame, 20% June to July, 25% October to December. Now, not to say that listings don't happen all year long, but those are really the times we want to focus and be very intentional. And I would say 2 to 3 weeks before the heart of that bell curve is really where we want to start our conversation. Those are the 7% people that are going to take action because we've cultivated them into that. And again, we're going to share all these slides with you, and I'm happy to talk about this stuff and sort of give you insight specifically on how you might craft your business. So, and feel free, obviously, if you guys have questions, put them in the chat. I'll pause occasionally to sort of answer both questions all at the same time. I mean, I want to make sure that if anything, you've got some awareness of the process today, probably not mastery, but some awareness of that. So let's get ourselves in the mind of the sellers for a second. Historically, every seller's wants, needs, and or fears fall into 3 categories. And this is where the system becomes so important. We never want to assume what our client wants because we want to ask those questions. But what a great opportunity in the beginning to demonstrate your system and process to talk about these from a standpoint like, hey, Jennifer, I know that, in my experience, clients like you are thinking of selling their home typically have 3 big pain points that they're really worried about, right? They're worried about the price, how fast the process or slow the process goes, and dealing with all the things. Is that true for you? What a great way to frame all the things they're thinking of as concerns and questions to tell them, you're like, oh yeah, no, I mean, you're unique and special, but also everybody has sort of these concerns in big pieces. So they want to maximize their money, they want to maintain momentum, and they want to manage the muck. And when I talk about time, maintain momentum, some clients want to go fast, some want to go slow. They just want to feel like they're making process. And we'll absolutely speak to that piece as we go through this. And I would encourage you to add to your dialogues as you go through this process. Make it a casual statement. Hey, in my experience, clients typically have 3 concerns that are the most important to them at any given time. And sometimes it's all 3. Jen, do you have, I saw that.
Yeah. What is that? That's because,
did we log in wrong and not?
I don't know.
All right, let's see what we can figure out here. Let's stick to this.
Go ahead. You keep going.
Yep. So in those 3, of those 3 things, Jen, is there any one that's more important to you, right? What a great leading question to ask in the beginning to sort of gauge your client from that process. Let's talk about the buyers for a second. One of the opportunities we miss when we talk to our sellers is we tend to focus very heavily on what the sellers want, but we don't frame the other side of the conversation about what buyers' needs, wants, and fears are. And I think this is an opportunity for us to talk about, hey, we're going to list your home, but let's talk about the 40, 50, 75, 10, whatever the number is, of the buyers who are going to be coming to us with the same needs, wants, and fears that you have. Let's think about what they want so we can make our process a little bit easier. So buyers are concerned about a couple things. They're going to miss something, they're going to lose something, they're going to pay too much, or they're going to buy a house that has too many problems, right? Those become the 4 pain points for buyers. And I think it's crucial that in our presentation, in our system, we acknowledge and talk about that to our sellers. Like, hey, I know you're concerned about price, time, and hassle. Your buyers are going to be concerned about these things. So how can we position your home so that we eliminate or reduce those 4 things for our buyers to increase our buyer pool, right? That becomes a huge piece in this process as we go through that. And again, we'll talk about that. Jen, I assume we want to just keep going and we'll figure it out here. And
I like I told you before everybody got on, we logged in as BH Genius, the training, instead of me as the admin. I can try to sign in, but I'm afraid it's going to end our video.
Yeah, we'll punt here in a second. So I'll get us to a stopping place, and if we have to pick up again, we will. So,
okay, thank you.
You hear me say this all the time. I'll say it's a little bit of my mantra. And by the way, I sometimes mess up words all the time. Anytime I've been in a relationship, oftentimes they usually say to me, like, for a guy who talks about how much words matter, you sure screw up your words sometimes. So I miss the boat occasionally as well. Here's the idea. Every single human has one of each of these groups. They're either aesthetic or pragmatic, and also they're either a motivator or a facilitator. The aesthetics like the feeling, they like the process, they like the visual, they like the experience. The pragmatics, just give me the numbers. Just give me the numbers, show me the end result. I don't need the fancy stuff. Every single client you talk to is going to be one of those things. So part of our experience is to figure out which one they are. And then on the other side, they're either going to be a motivator or a facilitator. I'm probably much more of a motivator. Like, here's what you should do. Here's the idea, right? Like, it's a very salesperson-like thing, which is not to say that that's bad. Facilitators love to have options. They like to know all the things that you could do A, you could do B, you could do C. And I frame it this way. If you've had any sales experience in your life, it's very easy to find out who you are, because if the person sitting across the table from you is the opposite, it creates this weird friction, right? If you're a motivator like I am, and I'm being sold something, like, well, Jake, you could do A, you could do B, you could do C, I instantly get my feathers ruffled and I'm like, ugh, just literally tell me what to do. That's too many options. I came to you so I don't have to have the options. The other side of the coin, if you're a facilitator and you love the options, having someone tell you what to do feels very incongruent with who you are. So this system, the Greenprint, is built around the idea that we can speak to every combination of these people without actually knowing how they're wired. Well, we'll certainly find out how they are based on how they respond, but you could have an aesthetic facilitator, an aesthetic motivator. The idea here is we don't want to assume how someone needs to be communicated to based on a small interaction with them. So the system makes sure that we speak to all of their languages, tells them how to do it, and also gives them some options along the way as well. Think about that. Think about how you communicate, right? Are you a aesthetic, pragmatic? Are you a motivator or a facilitator? How do you give direction? Because oftentimes what we miss when we don't get listings is you've got a facilitator on the other side and you're motivating them, do this, do this, do this, and they don't feel seen or heard by giving them options, or the opposite. So that's a big challenge, I think, for all of us, is to think about how we communicate, and does that communication match our other side? Jen, do we want to keep going just for a minute, and then we'll figure out? Okay,
I'm working on it.
So on the words matter piece, if you do nothing else after today, I'm okay with that. I'll be a little disappointed, truthfully, because I think there's some benefits here, but these are very simple things we can change in our everyday presentation and language that have significant impact with our clients, especially if we're discerning between aesthetic, pragmatic, motivator, facilitator. So you'll hear me talk about these things, and yes, they're fancy ways to say things, but those things matter. And here's why. I don't know that, when we talk to our clients, if we say a pre-listing package or listing presentation, they know what that is because they've heard the term often enough, but I don't think it really explains what that actually is. So my go-to phrase is preliminary marketing assessment. It's just a fancy way of saying, Here's everything I do to help market your home to get you the highest price in the shortest time with the fewest hassles, right? Because that's what I focus on. When we say listing presentation, it makes the end result about signing the contract. When we talk about a preliminary marketing assessment, highest price, shortest time, fewest hassles, that directly speaks to their 3 fears. This is my system for doing that. So we shift the conversation a little bit. And again, with the listing presentation, I call it a marketing strategy session. Hey, Jen, when we get together for our marketing strategy session, there's my system is pretty robust, but I still need 20% of this information from you, and I want to talk to you about how I incorporate your needs into that strategy. Right? A presentation is honestly what I'm doing right now. I talk, you listen, you nod occasionally, laugh at some of the jokes. A strategy session feels more collaborative in that process, that they're involved in that. So that's an easy shift. Price. I don't love the word price. Sometimes we have to say price. There are many ways to say this. I gravitate towards initial market position because I think it's just more robust. Initial may not be final. Market, the market truthfully dictates the price. The market tells us if we're overpriced or underpriced. And position, how we relate to the other competition, homes, on the market at any given time. Right, so I think that's an easy thing to shift. And if somebody says to you, well, that's a really fancy way to say price, you get to explain why, which now gives them a sense of, man, they really do know what they're talking about if they're thinking, at this detail. Commission, don't love that. Compensation, sort of my preferred. And Marjorie says it in her presentation. She dislikes the word deals, and I do too. When we say deals publicly, it feels very transactional. I don't think that families, hey, I want to do this many deals, I want to help this many families. I don't know that resonates with me in the best way, but I like it more than saying deals. So the end takeaway here is when you say certain things, is that the right thing at the right time? And does that resonate with your clients, not just with us individually, because that's sort of the language we're used to. And I'm happy to talk about some of these things. I want you to find what's congruent to you, what resonates with you, what feels right for you. If you're like, Jake, I would never say that. That sounds cheesy. I'm like, I get it. Sometimes I can be a little cheesy, but I want you to find your way through that process. So, it looks like we got just about a minute. I feel like this is a good spot to stop before we get into the stuff. And I don't know what to do. I guess technically we can relaunch this session and hopefully just start again, and maybe that will be the answer. So give us 30 seconds to stop this, and hopefully we can restart the session. I apologize. Certainly not our intention. Join us right back here in another minute or so, and we'll get to